this. So today we have a topic that I am really excited to talk about. We haven't gotten to talk about it yet, and I'm excited because it's really important to me. So today we're going to talk about ketamine, and so we'll hit a couple different topics, like what it is, what about Matthew Perry. Is it Matthew Perry?
Yes.
What about Matthew Perry? How does it feel? How does it work? We're going to go through all of that stuff today.
This is going to be a lot of you.
Yes, it is. It is. And so, you haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
And that's just because of your life and the way it is. It's not that you have any objections to it.
Nope.
Okay. So, she's starting nursing school and
scheduling us to both be here,
Yeah.
not seeing patients.
Yeah.
Without children.
Yeah. So it's just a whole bunch of that, but it's not that she's against it, and she does have experience with administering it.
Mm-hmm.
So you've helped me through the process of giving it to patients. So you have that viewpoint of it. So let's start with, whenever I say the word ketamine to patients, they say, "Oh, well, what about Matthew Perry?" So I feel like we should start there, but then also maybe I should just say what ketamine is. So ketamine it's actually FDA approved for the use of anxiety, depression, and chronic pain. And it...
PTSD?
PTSD, actually. Yeah, you're right. PTSD. And it's given in a couple different forms, and we'll go over those a little bit more. It can be done in an IV, it can be done in an injection, it can be done in nasal spray, and it can be done by like a candy thing that you suck on. So a couple different ways to do it. It would probably be called psychedelic, and a lot of people get kind of anxious about that word, but we'll explain all that too. So anytime I bring up ketamine, and usually I bring it up for anxiety and depression, people say, "Oh, what about Matthew Perry?" So,
or isn't that a horse tranquilizer?
Yes, isn't that a horse tranquilizer? So let's go with that one because that's
Yeah.
easy. Is it a horse tranquilizer? Yes. So ketamine has been used for a really, really long time in lots of applications. It's been used on humans for anesthesia. It's been used as a medicine when soldiers are on combat and they get wounded and we can't quite treat them right then, so we give them ketamine. We've used ketamine for a really long time.
And I think its use is actually growing in the emergency departments.
Yes, especially pediatrics.
Yes, especially for children.
They're doing a lot with kids. Okay, we gotta take a break. So, we're talking about horse tranquilizer. It's been used in so many different places. They're using it in kids' ERs now. They're using it in a friend of mine, he was in the hospital for asthma. He had passed out. They gave him ketamine. But it's also used in veterinary medicine, and so vets have used it as a anesthesia or tranquilizer for medications. So isn't it a horse trank? Yeah, that means we've given it a ton. It's a safe medicine. As medicines go, it's a pretty safe one. So, yeah, is it a horse tranquilizer? Yes. And then, is it what killed Matthew Perry? So this was brought to me, so I had to research it and figure out what actually happened. So I said this medicine is used as an anesthesia, and so if you're on anesthesia, you're not able to necessarily make the best decisions, right? So on ketamine, if you're on really high doses, it's a tranquilizer, so you're not able to move. So what we do is we give about 10% of the regular dose when we're going for anxiety. So Matthew Perry took 10 times the dose that we would give in our office. He did it alone.
He took an anesthetic dose.
He took an anesthetic dose. He took a dose that was meant to put people to sleep. And he had been on this medicine for a while, and he knew that happened. He chose to do it alone. He chose to do it in his hot tub. And so, I hate to say this and bring this up, but it's very much looks like a suicide to me. So, ketamine was a part of the situation and the process, but it did not cause his death. It very likely made him slip into a sedated, tranquil state, and then he drowned. And so the cause of death is drowning, but the reason ketamine gets brought up is because that was a method that he used, a tool.
And whenever you're looking at the situation, he was using ketamine recreationally at anesthetic doses versus monitored in a facility or a clinic with healthcare professionals administering the medication. Like, it's just two very different scenarios.
And I said earlier we would talk about dosing in different ways, and I feel like so there is a lot of people out there where you can get ketamine oral or nasal spray to do it at home, and I just don't love that. I think that they need to be supervised, and somebody needs to step through this process with them. And so I first of all don't approve of home dosing. So then, not taking 10 times the dose and not taking it alone in the hot tub. So I think ketamine really got a bad rap here. It was not the cause of death. It did not kill Matthew Perry. He just happened to use it at the time. And I think he very much knew what he was doing. So I hate that he gave that rap to ketamine.
And there's plenty of drugs, medicines, that are used recreationally that have very good and well studied and documented medicinal indications.
Oh, fentanyl. I used to prescribe a lot of fentanyl. I would prescribe the Duragesic patches. So that is like extremely high dose levels of fentanyl given over a 3-day period. But I was dealing with a population of really old patients who had lots and lots of pain that was chronic, that wasn't going anywhere. So fentanyl was this magic that we could give to old people.
Fentanyl changed the end of my dad's life for the better. Because he was taking Dilaudid, I can't remember how many milligrams, orally every couple of hours and still dealing with pain, and he'd be knocked out, and it was just a vicious cycle. Whenever we started him on the fentanyl patch, it kind of like brought him back to life a little bit. Yeah. Like, that was a game changer for us.
Yes. And so ketamine's the same. It can be misused. And that's bad. Don't do that. That's not what we're talking about. But there are ways that in the right environment, it's amazing. So let's talk about what it does. So our brains, the way we process information is the idea, the information, whatever, the basic piece stimulates our brain, and our brain travels to different parts of the brain to make a decision. And the way that it travels is these neurons. So it's this like electrical process that happens in our brain where we have a piece of information and it gets shot to the next one, shot to the next one, shot to the next one. And so these are like highways. We have the information, it's got to get to this part of the brain. So how does it go? Well, our brains make these pathways, and they do it pretty much when we're young. When we're older, it's called brain plasticity. And when we're older, we just don't make those pathways anymore. Our brain uses the pathways that we developed when we were younger. So
even if they're faulty.
Even if they're faulty, yes, absolutely. And that's actually really the
whole point.
The whole point is we have these bad experiences with these things, and we build poor pathways, and then we're unable to handle things, and we get depressed, and we get anxious because we can't handle that. But so ketamine actually increases brain plasticity. So this is like amazing. This is like huge that it does this. But it allows us when we're older to make new connections. So while before I thought, let's say a rope in the middle of a road, okay? So let's say your brain sees a rope in the middle of the road. Well, if last time that rope was a snake and you got bit, and you got bit the time before, and so your brain has now associated rope with snake. So when you look at this rope, you feel all these emotions. You have all these triggers. So in ketamine, you may be able to, and you can't pick exactly what connection you choose, but you could remodel your brain so that snake rope thing in the road doesn't go. It goes to, what is that? To more formal thought, to what are options for this thing in the road, instead of just going straight to it's a snake. Panic. And having that panic. So we remodel our brains. For me, and I'll tell you in a second about how I got to ketamine, but for me, a huge one was meditation. Like, I could not meditate. If I would think about meditating, my brain would go to bugs, and I would think about bugs crawling all over me. And so I'd sit there, and I'd just be itchy, and I would feel everything, and I'd get out of it, and I just could not meditate. But when I did ketamine, really the first time I was in that space, that meditative space, and my brain learned a new way to get there. So I learned a new pathway. I think of it as a door. I got a new door into this room that I wanted to go into.
This thing that you were unable to access, you've now opened the doors
yes.
to.
So, or maybe you think about it as all these brain pathways were a whole bunch of halls, and I had to twist and get lost and all of that. It was really hard to get into this room. And now I just have, you know, storefront, like a Main Street storefront.
Yeah.
That's meditation. And after that one episode, I can do it. I can still, that pathway's there now. So if I think about meditating, I don't go on all the one twisty bug infested route. I just am there, and I know how to do that. So it was crazy, but that's why. Like, that's what happened was my brain developed this new neuronal pathway to interpret this information. So how I got to ketamine. I've listened to other stories, and I've heard other people, and I was not like that. So lots of other people hear about it, and they're like, oh, isn't that a horse tranquilizer? Isn't that what killed Matthew Perry? I heard about it, and I said, sure. That was it. I was sold.
It's very Robyn of you.
Very me, yes. But it was because I had a therapist who I really trusted. We'd had a great relationship. We'd been together for about 3 years at this point. I went to him and I said, look, I have all these coping mechanisms. I have all these things, and this depression is getting me. So I think of my depression as like I'm on a boat, and it's in the middle of a lake, a dark lake at night, and it's got fog. And so I feel like this fog is the depression. Yeah, and it creeps in. Once I get lost in that fog, it's hard to get out of. That's that pure depression. And so I told him, I was like, I'm using all my tools and my meds. Like, I feel like my tools are fans, you know, that pushes the fog away. And so I told him, I was like, pretty much my boat is full of fans. I'm doing everything I can. And I can still feel that fog encroaching. Like, I can still feel it. I'm going to get stuck in this. Like, help me.
And then you get at a certain point where you're so depressed, the fog has overcome you so much, you can't even operate those fans anymore.
No, you can't. You can't find the fans. You can't get to them. You're totally lost. And so I was scared at this point because it was like, I know that's going to happen. I know the fog's coming. Help. So I went to my therapist and I said, what do I do? And he said, well, there's this thing called ketamine that I think might be really good for you. So I'm real skeptical unless it's somebody that I know and trust.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that he knew what he was talking about, so I tried it. And it's so, I guess I wasn't scared, but now looking back, I can see why it would be totally scary. So I went into this clinic and I wrote down my info, and I go into a chair, and they start an IV, and I have no idea what I'm expecting. And you just sort of drift off, but you're very much conscious. So
I want to describe it as a dissociative experience.
Yes. So the way they actually classify it is a dissociative anesthetic. And so I like to think of it as like you are you, but you're also your body. And so when you're on ketamine, your body sort of goes away. So for me, like I think about it like when I tell my story to myself, all I think about is all the things I did wrong, all the stupid decisions that I made, how it's my fault that I'm in this position. You know, that's my assessment of my own story and my own self. It's always hard and mean. But if somebody came and told me their story, I would feel compassion. I wouldn't judge them. I don't do that. If someone tells me their story, it's like, oh, well, that really bad thing happened, so of course you made that decision.
This all makes sense.
It makes sense. And, but I couldn't do that to myself. And so I felt like on ketamine, my body and myself are pulled apart to the point that I was able to look at my story with grace. Mm-hmm. And like I could look at it not with that judgmental mind, but that thought of, well, of course you made that decision and you did that. And that was the flow of what happened, not you suck.
Are these... ideas happening while you're in this state, or are they coming after?
No, so you definitely get lost in that while it's happening. And then you start to wake up, and unlike other drugs, I'm not saying I've ever used any illegal drugs, but with other drugs, the principle is you always want more. You want more. You want more.
Yeah.
And with ketamine, you start to wake up, and you are so excited to get back to life because now you're looking at it from this new viewpoint. You're coming at it from a totally different, from different neuronal pathways. So when you start to wake up, you're not feeling like, oh, I wish I wasn't waking up. Like, you're excited to wake up. You don't want more. It doesn't cause, it's like that addictive thing.
I have another theory here. You're walking into this ketamine therapy with the, pretense of healing versus walking into it with the pretense of getting high and escaping.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's a pretty big...
And I think people think that that's the only way. Like, they think that getting high is only for enjoyment or recreation. But it isn't. We can learn.
Right.
Yeah. Like, that's where you were saying some drugs are...
Like, this is a healing journey that includes a psychedelic or dissociative experience. But you, I'm sure, did not walk into that clinic like, man, I want to get high.
Well, for me, I didn't know.
Right.
I didn't.
Right.
He was just like, take this medicine. And I'm like, okay.
You just want to get better.
I just wanted to get better. And, yeah, but you're bringing that up because that's really a big concern.
It's a
people
huge
have.
concern that people have.
But, they recommend this for
addiction.
our experience. We have some really crazy experience. We've done ketamine on someone who, her family also saw us. And so they told us, and she told us a little bit, but they told us that she was drinking too much, that she just, that was become a problem. And so we're like, no, let's try ketamine. We know it's an addiction problem. Let's treat this addiction with this medicine. And she
also had chronic pain.
She came in and she had a wonderful experience. And then her son came in a couple months later and was like, she hasn't drank since she did it. Like, one time, and she didn't drink anymore. So, and then she didn't have that craving of needing to come back and do more ketamine.
Right.
Like, it is a heal. We're so messed up by society that it's a bad thing, but it can cause so much healing. Like,
and there's 2 patients I can think of off the top of my head who, after their experience, whenever they've fully returned to their body and they're having normal conversation with us again, they're like, oh my gosh, that was incredible. I can't believe I didn't do this sooner. Also, I'm glad I know that I'll be able to do this again. Neither of them have come back for another treatment. They are not addicted
because
to doing
it works still after.
Right.
So it's not that it continues to stay in our system, it's that it truly made a new connection. And
right.
so now our brains are able to do this. And so that's why it can work in just one, because sometimes we can just figure out how to not get anxious. Maybe that's the pathway we discover, and then you just don't.
And I think it depends on the severity of your situation too. How many treatments it may take. And I'm sure both of them would benefit greatly from more treatments.
But yeah, at least you see.
But you see a huge change in one, and they're not addicted to it.
They're not addicted. I think another one that's kind of surprising. So when I did it, one of the first people that I told to do it was my pastor. And so I think also people start to think like, oh, that's just not spiritually right. And the first time that I went in, I connected to God. I thought my relationship became so much stronger. I told my pastor, he has since done ketamine and just was able, because you just find what matters in the world. You find what matters in the universe. And I don't love the word, some people use the word God. I can respect that in any way that you choose. I use the word God, but no matter what, we know that there's this thing that's power. The thing that makes us alive and not dead. The thing that makes us alive. And so when all you're looking at, you're not looking at any of the tainted brain. You're just looking at that God. That is...
You get to see it without religion.
You do. You get to see God without religion, and you get to truly connect to that because your body's gone. You're only the consciousness that you are. And gosh, it just shows how much things don't matter. Like,
none of your fears and judgments and shames and all of these things that you don't feel worthy for, you just get to have that experience.
Yeah, they just don't matter. And you realize that. And then, looking up before this podcast, I read something that said, you need to have behavioral therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, just therapy with this. But truly, and I loved the statement that 80% of the journey, or 80% of the healing, 80% of your treatment is understanding it. And so once you kind of understand those things, I don't really matter. Oh, I'm wonderful. Like, the thing that makes me is amazing. Once you have those, you don't worry so much about the other things. So yeah, you should probably get some supplemental stuff, but it gives you that 80% to understand your issues. Oh, I feel shame about this because this happened. Oh, well, sometimes that happens. And so you can kind of move on. So I think that's another very cool part of it. So for you, we talked about my experience. Why don't you talk about what you had never seen it before, and then we had our first patient. And what did you think about the process? What was it like, and what were your thoughts, and how were the patients?
So, let's see if I can get my words right here. I think I went into it scared. Like, of course, glad you're here.
Well, because we had to it was a big deal. We had to get the attorneys to
approve it was this whole
huge process to be able to legally do this stuff.
It's a narcotic that requires all of this different documentation. So I'm thinking about it like, as a nurse with a license, this is higher risk than anything we've done here, solely because it is a narcotic medication.
Well, it's not a narcotic.
Well, it's classified.
It's a controlled.
Yes, controlled. That's what I mean. Yeah. But once the process started, we're just sitting here watching them.
I think people are afraid they're gonna do something crazy. They're gonna run around. They sit there and smile.
Yeah. And I think so. The first one we had, she was doing
the blanket.
She was doing this with her hands.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm gonna ask her if she used to play piano. She's like, yes, I did. She's just like playing the piano with her hand. So it's cool to see the older lady with the chronic pain. She came in and she's like tensed up and kind of hunched over, and then she just like melted into that chair. Like, her body just relaxed.
She didn't hurt.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she walked out of here like standing straight up, like with this lightness about her.
Lightness is a good word.
So yeah, I always think it's cool to just see like how they walk in and then how they're walking back out of here. And then whenever you see them the next time, they're like, it was just the most amazing experience.
Everybody has felt very safe.
In our little bubble.
Our dome.
Describe it, a dome.
Yes. We've had multiple people say they felt like our office had a dome. That it was just like this dome. And I think it's that feeling of protection and knowing you're safe. But multiple people have described it as a dome over us. Because they feel safe, they're comfortable, and then they relax. And then also, you don't judge yourself for being nervous about it anymore. You can just relax. Like, you relax with us.
Right.
Like, people understand finally that we're just here because we care.
Yeah.
And we want to help you through this. And so they lose a lot of that formality and are just like, okay, we can talk as people.
Yes.
And gosh, that helps. And that would help with just general.
That's just one of the things
anxiety.
Here at Crafted is we're just people here.
Yeah. So, okay, any other thoughts?
I don't know, maybe we talk about like how we're monitoring during the process.
Oh, that's a really good thing. So it can be scary, and so it's like this anesthetic. So what do we do? So in our office, we are a bit overkill. We don't actually have to provide this, but we just think it makes people feel safer and makes everybody just more calm. So in our office, we do blood pressure monitoring throughout. Sometimes ketamine can cause an increase in blood pressure, and we've seen this, but it is only a transient increase, and they've looked at studies to see if it's even worth treating, and they say it's not because it's going to go down after the blood pressure. So
it does.
It does. We've seen it go up a bit, maybe right to the point we're starting to get a little nervous, and then it comes right down after. So
and like as soon as that drip stops, the patient starts like coming back to, and the blood pressure starts returning to normal as soon as that drip stops.
Yeah, it really is. It's very quick, and so they've done reviews on this to determine is it better to treat it, and they've said no, it's not. So it is a side effect that can happen. We'll come back to side effects too. We're talking about monitoring. We'll come to that. So we do, in order to do the blood pressure constantly, we keep a pulse ox on your finger to make sure your breathing is totally normal. We put a 3-lead EKG monitor on and monitor the heart rhythm the whole time, so that's good. And then we also just sit here with you, like so.
And we have oxygen.
And we also have oxygen in case anybody needs that. And then we are both in here, at least one of us, all the time, monitoring the drip, watching you, making sure you're looking good, and you still can respond. Like if I said, "Hey, are you doing okay?" You know, they'd be like, "Yeah," or you know, "No," and then I might need to figure out if I need to help. But overall, it's got a really good safety profile. It's got a really good safety indication.
We're doing a tenth of
the dose that we have done for years.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So we've done we're doing a tenth of it. So side effects, most of them are really just during. You can get. So we have people get picked up by someone because you afterwards. The way that I explain it is hard to imagine until you do it, and then you're like, oh, I totally get that. But it's like if you're a little bit delayed, like your vision and your processing is just a little bit slower.
So lag.
Yeah, a lag. So like if you went and drove to the stop sign, you'd stop at the stop sign, but you look around, you're like in the middle of the street, you know, because that processing time to get your foot on the pedal, that was delayed. So that you shouldn't operate heavy machinery for about 12 hours, 12, 24 maybe, to be careful, because that but you'll also be normal.
I always laugh, and I saw a meme that made it even funnier. Whenever you see on a medication label or your doctor says not to operate heavy machinery, I'm thinking like a tractor. Like I shouldn't get on the backhoe.
I think of like an industrial plant.
You shouldn't drive your car.
Yes.
That's
you shouldn't drive your car.
Heavy machinery.
Yes. You shouldn't drive your car. Or your tractor.
Don't get on the backhoe either.
Yeah, don't do those. But so but you could go to a restaurant, you know, most of the time. So you're a little sleepy. For me, I've done it multiple times. Sometimes I went right back to work, and then sometimes I was so tired and then I needed to take a nap after. So there's that. It also can cause nausea and vomiting. And so what we do is we have orals that you can take before if you know you're predisposed to that, or if it occurs during, we have Zofran and Ondansetron, an anti-nausea medicine that we can put in the bag, and so you can get it just delivered straight to you.
Yeah.
And then like the wake up, I think maybe this might be where we're a little different than others. We schedule our patients for 2 hours. We know that this process takes an hour and a half. So that way patients know that they can just take their time. Like a big part of it in not having side effects is waking up slow and stable and calm. So we make sure we really put in enough time. So you can just take as long as you want.
And the whole time, so sometimes even whenever we're getting the IV started, you'll have on headphones with music going.
So that's a big thing that our music, I'm super excited about our music. Our music is, and there's multiple ones, but the one we used as a basic standard was one that therapist that I mentioned earlier had written for it. And he spent a lot of time on that playlist and how it guides your emotions and really leads your consciousness down the paths that heal. So, yeah, I'm just excited because it's such a cool thing. It's such a really cool piece
and
that
we have had patients say that and experience that.
They've made lots of comments. And they'll be like, I got so sad that I was just almost too sad. And then the song pepped me up. And it's like, it brings you right back. So it'll like kind of take you through all of these emotions and lead you and then end in the right place. So, yeah, I love our playlist. And then I've modified it a little because, like, my favorite song, I like it to play, like, right when I'm transitioning. And so I play it twice. Like, because the first, it'll be like, I know that I'm pretty aware, and so I can enjoy it, and then I start to love it, and then I like it when I'm in that zone, so I play that one twice.
We also have an eye mask on you, and we have the curtains closed, so it's a nice dark room.
It's dark and quiet. We block out sound.
So
water, blanket, comfortable chair.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we put you in one of these recliners, recline you back. We have a blanket that we give people, and so we really, so in drugs, it's, maybe illicit drugs is the right word, but set and setting is a really big thing. So, like, people talk about a bad trip on, like, shrooms, right? And most of the time, a bad trip is because you were in a situation that wasn't conducive to that.
You don't feel safe.
You don't feel safe. You have a frat brother freaking out over there. Maybe you aren't safe because, like, the cops could come. And so there's just all these different things that make that bad trip. But we have found that the best way to make everything a great experience is to just be calm and comfortable and safe. We want that dome around you. And so that's a huge part, I think, of why ketamine works so well in the office, is because we do have a great set and setting for...
And you have no concerns about where this came from.
Yes. Or the cops coming in, because this is totally legal. This is totally legal. Not on the street. It's legal if you come to a clinic.
Yes.
Yeah.
With a prescriber.
Yes. But for some, it's just been magic. It's been magic. One of my friends, so he owns a ketamine clinic, and he did a study on suicidal med students. So med students have a really, really high suicide rate. And I think he had 8 people in it. Don't quote me. I'll see if I can find it and put it down here. But I think they had 8 people, and they all, after ketamine therapy, multiple times, had no suicidal ideation. So in a high population, out of 8, that means we just straight up saved somebody's life. You know, one of those, it was so bad that I think a lot of them had attempts, and it was really bad, and yeah, they saved their life with ketamine. So,
and I think we're just finding more and more different populations that have really high suicide rates. Like, that's just becoming way bigger than it used to be.
Because the world is messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so your brain pathways are messed up. So let's reset your brain pathways. It's so cool. It's so cool. And that's also why people who have tried and failed multiple therapies for anxiety and depression do so well with this, because this is going in and truly changing the brain.
Whereas, like, an antidepressant, you need to be taking that.
It's actually supplementing and making a change in your body, and you have to take that, or that change doesn't continue. Yeah. So it just hits it from a totally different angle, a more permanent angle. And so we talk about people doing it just once. FDA has approved therapy for a series of 12 weeks, doing it 3 times a week. So that's 3 times a week for 12 weeks is how much the FDA has said.
Is that what you did?
No, unfortunately, I could just never afford it.
Yeah.
It's, this is like I've said, we do a lot. It's a hard process. We have to get the stuff. We have 2 people monitoring you and all of that. And so, unfortunately, it just can't be, it's expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think we charge, like $460?
I think that's right. We also have packages.
We have packages, and it gets to be like 20% off if you get like 6 or more. But for me, I was just never able to afford that much. So I would do it about every 3 weeks. Like, I would feel like my depression would kind of start to creep back in after about 3 weeks. And so I did it every 3 weeks for a while. And then I just needed it less and less and less.
When's the last time you did it?
When I went to the education. So what, a year and a quarter ago?
Yeah.
So probably 18 months or so. Less than 18 months, 18 months. Yeah. And it's just because, like, I like it and I could always learn from it, but I don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, I say setting is such a big deal. Like, I love the place that I go to.
Mm-hmm.
And I like them. I want to stay with them.
You're comfortable.
I'm comfortable. And that was such a big deal. And then I moved away, so I have to drive back like 5 hours. So, I just don't do it as much now. But I think that does show that you don't have that feeding for it. Like, I don't wish for it all the time. I could go and get it anytime. Yeah. And there's plenty of clinics all around where I live, and I'm sure there's a great one. But
and you've been back in that area many times.
Yeah, I used to go back to my hometown a lot, so it really wasn't a big deal. But I just didn't need it. I was able to manage. It gives you tools. You learn how to manage it. So over time, you're just chill. And I feel like I'm pretty chill. Sometimes I'm crazy, but I feel like I'm pretty chill, and I was not like that.
Yeah.
Like, I used to get obsessed about everything, and now I'm just like, yeah, we'll see what happens. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of...
Can't relate.
So that will be really cool. We will definitely do a follow-up just as soon as you are done, and we'll come back and we'll get Camille's opinion on this.
Yeah.
So we'll see how she... Yeah, I'm excited. I'm so excited for her.
Maybe I'll relate one day.
Yes. Yeah, you need to relate soon, because it's such a gift. It's such a gift. I have this clinic, and we make money in lots of different ways. I didn't have to have this. This isn't like what we do. We
really don't even push it.
We really don't. But I really like to offer it because I just think it's a gift. It's just a wonderful thing, and I feel like we're in a position that we're able to do that, and so I think we should. It's like our public responsibility to get ketamine. But yeah, we'll follow up with you.
So, do you feel like if other psychedelics became legal, they would have the same types of benefits as ketamine just because of the experience? Or do you think, because ketamine really is doing something specific in the brain, are other psychedelics doing the same thing?
Yeah. So I asked this
like
question.
Psilocybin, for instance.
Psilocybin. So I asked the guy that I go to, that I like, who's done all this research, and he said that ketamine is like turning on the tap. Just the water's flooding out, just full force. And so we're going to get cured pretty quick that way. We're just dumping the cure on. And psilocybin is more like a drip. So over a long period of time, so especially like microdosing for a long period of time, it also increases neuroplasticity. So we are going to get that same benefit, but it just takes a long time. Like ketamine just dumps it on you, and the other just drips it on you. I have a funny story about that, though. My supervising physician called me, and he said, so I've been researching, and why don't you sell psilocybin? Why don't you prescribe psilocybin? He was like, this is a good drug. He's like, I looked it up, and it's amazing in the studies, and we're really making changes, and people they're not having anxiety and depression anymore. And I'm like, it's a great drug. It's a great drug. It's just not legal. I cannot legally sell psilocybin. But we had a period in the U.S. history where we were very anti-drugs. Just black and white, drugs are bad. And that just was not true. That just wasn't true. We were a little overzealous.
Yeah.
And so psilocybin is illegal for no real reason.
Yeah.
Like there's no reason.
And
it
I think
just happens to be in that class.
I can't remember what the group is that's doing a ton of research on psychedelics with veterans.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's huge.
I cannot remember the name, but they're doing research with like MDMA and psilocybin, all of these different things.
I think isn't MDMA
Ibogaine
approved? Ibogaine, I don't know what that is.
That's another psychedelic. I think that's a harder, like that's a rough experience, kind of like ayahuasca.
Interesting. Yeah, it's all sciencey names and stuff. I can't even find anything that's like something that I could relate to. Traditional African psychedelic plant. Traditional,
like if we go way back here to what a healer or a doctor or a shaman would have done.
They would have used these tools.
Yes.
We like evolved next to shrooms. Like we've used plants, all of these different plants. Yeah. That have all of these different chemicals. We've had access to that for a long time, and it's generally known to be beneficial. Like the shaman was someone who helped not just your body ailments, but your mind ailments and your psyche. So I hate that it's so negative because these just...
and hard to talk about. Like you kind of have to tiptoe around.
Yeah,
especially in the like healthcare field. With a license.
Yes. Well, yeah, we were talking to the attorney today about some totally unrelated stuff, and he said, they use the fear of having your license taken away to control us.
Yeah, with every little thing.
Yeah. So you do have to be very careful, and I just hate that. I hate that that's the law. I hate that's the way we are. But like you said, they're doing a lot of research, and so they are making huge strides. So that's why we need to be out in the population telling people.
Talking about it.
Yeah, saying it's normal. It's okay. This is what we've done for all of human history. This is how we've healed. This is how we've reset our brains. And so, like, we just had some political reasons that they got bad names.
And if you're someone who's into, like, holistic health or the more, like, not traditional medicine, then this is, like, just a natural thing that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, like, whenever Leighton's sick, I'll use a lot of homeopathy and herbal things versus using Tylenol. I hate Tylenol. So, plants are medicine, and it shouldn't be this wild thought to think that they do actually have medicinal implications.
Yes. Well, you know what really shook me on that topic? I really like the evolution of humans, or the development. I really like the idea of humans as an animal, or we are animals. But one of our earlier relatives, on grandfathers or whatever, was still a primate. It was, well, I guess we're primates, but it was a monkey, okay? I don't know what the right word is, but it was a monkey. And it learned medicine. It learned how to use certain meds for certain leaves for certain situations. And it would go around and spread this information throughout different tribes. And so what really got me on that, though, was that they have to work so well that an animal found a pattern.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty good.
Another thing on that, they are probably far more in tune with their bodies than we are now.
Yeah. But still, it shows that medicines work because they gave this random leaf and it made somebody better. Okay, but you wouldn't catch on. That wouldn't be tribal shared information. It's a one-time thing. But this happens so much over and over that they found reproducible evidence that if you take this leaf, you won't be nauseous. If you do this, it'll make your head stop hurting. So obviously it does.
Right.
And then if you take this medicine, you'll have a better understanding. You'll understand what's going on.
We've just turned to pharmaceuticals, and it's monetized and controlled and all of the things instead of ancient practices.
We forgot we're animals.
Yeah.
But we're of the earth. We're made of the earth. We are made of the same thing as shrooms, not as Tylenol.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes. So, yeah, and I think ketamine, I know it's a little scary, but it's really not scary in practice. It's a safe medicine that's been used for a really long time. It's causing amazing results. So we talked a little bit, we'll just recap. It's anxiety, depression, PTSD, chronic pain, and addiction are really the main ones.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also, and we do it here for this, as a way to improve your meditative practice. So I think that's really important that you have a practice where you can meditate. And if you can't, let's work on that. So that'll overall make your anxiety and depression and everything less.
That just kind of ties in.
Yeah. So, okay, well, I'm super excited we got to talk about that. I hope people like this and let us know. So, okay.